In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. We have want now to look at the Ten Commandments proper. And we have to begin by saying that the commandment is not, from the biblical perspective, it's not a suggestion. It's not a question of an option. It is that. In an age in which things really do not mean what they say they mean or indicate what they're supposed to indicate, a commandment is simply a direct direction, a direct indication of a form of behavior, or in the case of the Ten Commandments, a behavior to avoid. There's always this imbalance in this place. It's a terrible setting. Anyway, you're all the minority. I don't know what's wrong with you all, but anyway, they all seem to gravitate over there. It's like this, you know. The commandment. In ethics, we call this is a deontological ethic. A deontological ethic. That is, it is an ethic of duty. It's an ethic of duty which requires, on the part of the individual, obedience. Obedience. And perhaps the most famous and influential philosopher for deontological ethics in Western philosophy and so on, especially in the so-called Enlightenment or modern period, was Immanuel Kant, German philosopher. And Kant developed what was called the categorical imperatives. Categorical imperatives. Now, it's also sometimes referred to as formalistic ethic. Because when something is categorical, it gives you the form, gives you the shape. But the categorical imperative does not tell you the specifics. What are the specific elements, situations, elements that's going on? For Kant, there are two parts of the categorical imperative, A and B. A, always treat the other as a end and never as a means. That's the first one. That's the first and most important of always treat the other person as an end, never as a means. Now, what does that mean? Well, simply put, it forbids treating the person as an object for use. Because when the use is no longer useful, what happens? You discard. It's using people. Now, okay, never do that. What are the circumstances? What are the circumstances? Oh, in what situation? It doesn't tell you. It doesn't tell you. That's why it's categorical. Are you using this person simply for some end? I am very, very deficient in math. The person sitting next to me in the math class is very good at math. Okay? Very good at math. So I really don't particularly care for this person. In fact, I don't kind of even think about them, really. However, if I strike up a friendship with this person, in quotes, this might be my ticket to at least pass and get out of this class that I can't stand. Okay? So what I do is I cultivate the person. I'm nice to them, greet them, do all these kind of things. And at the end of the semester, when I get my C- or C, because that's how dumb I am, but I pass. You see? And after that, I don't know who they are. Hi, yeah, how you doing? Yeah, I'll call you later. Bye. What I'm doing is I'm using the person simply as a means, not an end is the intrinsic value or worth of the person. The person may be dumb as a box of rocks as a math partner, but they're a very nice person, and I come to see their qualities and so on and so forth like this. Well, granted, it's two dumb rocks, but that's not why I see the value of that person as a person. That's to treat a person as an end. It's the intrinsic worth of the person. So many of our relationships today are transactional and utilitarian. Transactional relationship is a kind of quid pro quo relationship. Probably a great many of your relationships are that. When you go to the grocery store, you have transactional relationships with the clerk. You're there to buy, they're there to sell and process you through, and so on and so forth, and that's the basis of it. Usually we don't stand there and spill our guts all over the place, although you have some goofy people that do that, okay, who are quite annoying, huh? They are. Oh, how's the children? What are you going? Oh, really? Oh, yes, yeah. Could you get through the line, please? They were only coming out the back of the store. This is your life, Ralph Edwards. No, we don't want that. We expect a transaction. In fact, you can go to the grocery store and never talk to a person. The price is there. You get what you want. You put it on the conveyor belt. You get there. The thing comes up. You shove your card in, naturally plastic money, because probably the cashier can't count. So you shove it in there, comes up, you get your little slip, off you go, and you haven't said a word to anybody. It's a transactional relationship. And many of our relationships are that. You get on the phone, you want to order a product. It's a transactional relationship. And many of our relationships today are that, and they are utilitarian. Utilitarian means useful or helpful. But beyond that, we really don't care to get into anything with these people. All we want is for them, you do this, I do this, off we go, fine. That's it. And especially in a capitalist and commercial society, Many of our relationships are that, utilitarian and transactional. You want to get things done. That's the kind of society we have, and so on. So we get used to this. We get used to this. So, but to treat a person as an end is to value that person in the other's personhood. You value that person as person. Person as person. And it's categorical, which means it's universal. It's universal. You don't just treat some people as means, others as ends, and so on and so forth like this. But it's categorical also in the sense that it fits a end relationship, covers all relationships that fit what it means to value the person as an end. Means relationships cover all those that mean. Think of, when I say categorical, think of an envelope. Think of an envelope, just a little envelope, whatever. And you say, put all the $2 bills in the envelope. Well, you put all the $2 bills in there. You're doing a categorical thing in that you don't care what the condition is. That wasn't what you were told. You were told put all $2 bills in, so on and so forth. So it's a category. You fall into a category. And much of our relationships today, even in the broader realm, tend to be categorical today. We put people in envelopes, classes, races, religion, gender, socioeconomic, ethnicity, and so on. The problem with that is what happens to those who are not in that category. Often, suspicion, kind of standoffishness, tend to be hostile, not trusting, and so on like that. Also, in categories, we tend to lump all who fit the category into that where there's a certain behavior that's expected. Oh, well, that's an Italian. You know, they run around in Cadillacs shooting people in the car. That's what they do. Or the Irish are all drunk, and so on and so forth like this. This is called stereotyping. Now, is there any validity to stereotyping? Yes. Yes. There are certain ethnicities and certain races, etc., that have certain characteristics of behavior. Yes, they do that. But in varying degrees. In varying degrees. Italians are very family-oriented or clannish, this and that. That it's true. It's true. Notice I didn't say good or bad. I simply said that's a characteristic. And so some people, for example, this is the big thing, of course, today, profiling. Profiling. Whoa, can't profile anybody. So you have some little old nun in the airport, it's 110, from Scandinavia, stumbling with a walker, or if she has one arm, having someone take care of her, and so on and so forth like that. And take off your shoes, let's go, get in that x-ray machine, and so on. That's insane. That's insane, you see. But stereotyping. So what do? Well, what we don't want is a person has dark skin, has a diaper or whatever on their head, around there, They're coming from Arabia or somewhere. We tell the sky marshal, right there, and so we don't, well, there's a degree of validity to that. As far as I know, I could be wrong, but one of the Trobriand Islanders did not fly planes into the buildings in New York, nor did little old nuns or other people. Why do you stereotype? Stereotype because there are certain characteristics and qualities of people, etc., that you can't visibly go through everybody. It's a practicality there. So we want to know something about their characteristics. When you call up on the phone because you want to make a complaint, somebody damaged your car or stole something from you, and there was a suspicious person in the neighborhood, and the police say, were they black, white, brown, yellow, red? Is that illegitimate? I hope not. I hope not. If the person that you saw was black, well, you don't run around using your resources checking people that look like they haven't been in the sun at any time in their life. That's absurd. It's absurd. But that's a specific instance. We have categories. How many of you in here have automobile insurance on your car? Yeah, you have automobile insurance. Yeah, you all have insurance. Well, your rates are set often by an actuary table. This lady here who drives a vanilla-looking little Toyota, there, you know, and she only putt-putts to the store and back, and so on and so forth, claims to only go to the church and back. Okay. And we have, let's say Maria back there to pick on somebody. Maria, who has let's say a Mustang, a red Mustang to boot.
Sports car.
Yes, sports car. And, and it's red. Automatically, she's going to pay higher rates. Why? Well, red is not a good color. She's like blue or white or something like that. Blue is the best. And she also goes out a lot at night and so on and so forth, you know, which is how I think someone told me she got her injuries, but I'm not going into that. But anyway, I don't know if that's true, but anyway. So you hear that. She's known to go with kind of a fast crowd, and she has a couple of tickets from her driving record. Well, she's going to pay a lot more. She may never get in an accident again. She may be wonderful and terrific. We don't care about that. An actuary table or life insurance, all of these things we deal with in terms of categories. So a category imperative is always when you treat a person as an end and not a means, you are fulfilling the categorical imperative. Hence, the second part is do an act as moral if that same act can be done by everyone. Hence, it is universal. A valid rule or command or law is valid when it does not use others as a means to an end, and what you are commanding can be done by everyone, the same act in the same circumstances, if you can universalize that, then it is valid. It is valid. See? And so the categorical imperative is very much rule and law-centered, which demands duty, and it is directed to behavior. Behavior. Let's say Sandy there, who has had bad experience with police officers for obvious reasons, okay? And he has an animus against them. Doesn't like them. And so he pulls up to the stop sign, of which he has known to run through many times. See? But parked on the corner there is Plaquemine Parish's finest. In the the car or the motorcycle, and he starts cursing to himself, just my luck, all this kind of stuff, because he's in a hurry to go nowhere, but he's in a hurry. And there's the enemy right there. So he pulls up to the stop sign and he stops. He stops. His behavior is such that it doesn't draw the attention of the police officer. But the police officer care whether Sandy wanted to stop, didn't want to stop, can't stand the police or anything else. Does the policeman come and give you a ticket because he has discerned that you don't like him? Of course not. We don't care about that. The policeman is basically a behavior-oriented. Did you or did you not stop? That's it. You want to stop? Good, wonderful, terrific. Yay, good for you. You can contribute more to the sheriff's reelection, okay? You can do that. You can't stand him. Won't care about that either. The only thing that matters is your behavior. It's very behavior-oriented. It is what we call act-centered, A-C-T. It's the materiality of the act. It's the materiality of the act. That's where the duty comes in. It is your behavior. Let's see, it's hard to find someone who would fit this category. Let's see, Roy back there. Wonderful, wonderful human being, great human being, civic-minded, practically lives in church. He's rumored when he walks by, incense comes out, and all of this kind of. Wonderful person. Helps children, little old ladies, runs errands for the housebound and all of them. And Roy is driving his car, and he comes to the stop sign, and something distracts him, and he goes through the stop sign. And the policeman right over there sees him, comes over and gives him a ticket and says, "Oh, Roy, it's you. My, didn't you see that stop sign there?" "Yeah, I got distracted. I'm really sorry." "Yeah, me too." What a rotten cop. "No," he would say, "no, I'm not. I'm obeying the law. That's why I'm here. You want me to make you an exception." "No, you didn't stop. But Sandy right there, who's a member of the Weather Underground, can't stand me, but he stopped. St. Roy back there, not intending to stop, attending to stop, would normally stop, always stops. He goes through, he gets the ticket, and this one doesn't. Yeah, Kant and the categorical imperative duty-bound people would say, yep, that's it. And he has a duty, the policeman, to give him a ticket. And he has a duty not to give a ticket to Sandy, who doesn't like police or anything else, but I have a duty to do that. You have to follow your duty. Duty is the big thing. Now, the reason I bring up German is because this was very much in play with the war crimes or the war trials at Nuremberg, wasn't it? Their defense was what? What was the defense of those? What were the defense of the Nazis at the Nuremberg trial? My God, you should know that. Very good. I'm following orders. You hear that today. I'm just following orders. Well, that may be true. But we have a great debate now. So all orders, you follow all orders unconditionally. The Kantian, or the duty, who's strict ontologist, would say, yep, you do. Yes, you do. You have to follow them. Now, we, of course, most in the West have a different view of this, etc. But you see where that kind of mentality of strictly the law, strictly the rule, you follow the law. One of the great novels written concerning this question of the limits of the law and duty to following the law was written by whom? It became a musical. 2 wonderful movies. Victor Hugo. Les Miserables. I think you've heard of Les Miserables, huh? Oh, yes, yes. Well, what is it about? It's about just this thing. The inspector is after Jean Valjean. And the maniacal extent to which he goes to prosecute him, which is really to persecute him. Because Jean Valjean has reformed himself. He's become the leading citizen, a mayor. But the duty-driven to insanity captain or inspector hounds him his whole life. And yet at the end, when he sees that Valjean has really been transformed, it was possible to change. It was possible to have a reclamation and a transformation. What does he do, the captain, the inspector? What's that? What does he do? He what? No. No, no. What does he do? What? He kills himself. Why does he kill himself? Because his whole world has just collapsed. Jean Valjean broke the rules, and once you break the rules, you are a rule breaker and will never be anything else but. And therefore, the inspector, his duty is to what? Get him, prosecute him, do all of that. But he sees that his whole maniacal life has been predicated on a lie, on a false assumption. So what must he do? He must kill himself. Suicide is the fitting ending for him, literally, because his whole being was in this notion of obey, duty, law, categories, etc. You see. Say, well, that's just a novel. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. How many people do you know? Maybe you. I don't know. Maybe me. Never. But supposing, do you have fixed notions of who's good and who's bad? And no matter what they do, you're not going to change it. They're not going to change it, rather. Because if they do, they're just being hypocrites. We go to rationalization. These people are that way. A leopard doesn't change its spots. He came from bad seed. We say that. We categorize people like that in varying degrees. So the idea that this is so far-fetched is not really far-fetched at all. There are many people who go around like that. Them Catholics, a bunch of papists. All they do is take marching orders from some guy in Rome. They want the electoral college to be replaced by the College of Cardinals. They want to run everything. The Jews, all they care about is money. This goes on and on. Goes on and on like this. And what happens then, the logical outcome, and you see it, you see it, you see it, you see it. See, all of this sounds very, it's not. It's not. What happens is stereotyping often leads, and you see it all over the place, folks. Scapegoating. Scapegoating. See, some individuals and societies cannot live without an enemy. Cannot live without an enemy. See, this became a big question when what happened in 1989? What's that? The wall came down. And since 1917, who was the enemy? The Russians. Now, all of a sudden, the wall came down. It's what Victor Havel called the Velvet Revolution. There were no tanks, bazookas, guns, bombs, none of this. It was a revolution of conscience, led by Pope John Paul. Don't expect to hear that in the media. It's Reagan, Thatcher, with an assist from Gorbachev. John Paul was again, you got to read that book, Pope and President. Read the Vatican documents and the White House documents that had been released. And you see, the greatest, you want a weapon of mass destruction? It was conscience that John Paul touched. You see, that's what happened. And the wall came down, etc. What happened to Alexander the Great toward the end of his life? What happened? Alexander the Great. He sat on a rock and cried because there were no worlds left to conquer. He had it all. He did it all. What do I do now? I've conquered them all. Well, you got to go invent an enemy. And so here we are, end of the Cold War. Francis Fukuyama, in his famous book, or infamous, depending on how you look at it, The End of History, the triumph of democratic liberalism had swept the world. with the collapse of the wall, of the Berlin Wall. How wrong, how wrong, how wrong. But that was the great arrogant belief. Now that the wall fell, this was going to be the new springtime, in which Western liberal democracy, talking about liberal in the philosophical sense, not in the crazy way it is today, the philosophical sense, that was going to take over the world. And then we got into nation building and wanting to have everybody be like us, irregardless of history, culture, traditions, all of that. They're all going to be like us. Now, if that doesn't sound arrogant to you, it sounds arrogant to the people who did not think it was such a blessing for them to be taken over that way, by the way, as most of us would not be if they wanted to take over our way. See, we get into all of this. Now, no, they don't tell you all this on television. I understand that. But we have to understand this for the currents that take place and see that as it's happening within a larger context, and not just some talking head boob standing up there reading something that somebody wrote off of a teleprompter, and so on. No, if we want to engage these things and understand them so that our own lives can have a better trajectory and better part of living, etc., with our families and in our communities, etc., we have to understand the larger currents of these, and not simply some 5-second soundbite from somebody who scribbles something up there on a teleprompter. Let's go on to the next story, the wildfires in California. We go from the bombing here to the wildfires there to the state fair in Iowa. And you want to know why we're so fragmented? I don't know. So these things, scapegoating is always the need to find an enemy. Because a common enemy is a great glue that can often tie people together. You know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Look at some of the people that have been in alliances down through the centuries, down through the millennia. Countries and nations and peoples in alliances. My God, how did they ever get together? Go look at it. How did they get together? They discovered a common enemy. That's what they did. You discover a common enemy, and boy, that'll get you going. That'll get you there. And once you start with this duty according to law, because there's a whole bunch of questions here that arise from that about the law. See? And you follow this, and you tend to become also, if you're duty-oriented and behavior-directed, you become very moralistic, very judgmental, very authoritarian, all of those things. She's not like me. Look how she walks into church. Oh, wait, I got to go to communion. Amen. Amen. I'd like to give you a slap. You got to be kidding. But no, my hands were perfect. See it like that? Just like that. All the while I'm scanning the congregation to see who's not going to communion. I think I know why. Jim Peoples there may seem to be innocent. He's anything but. I know things about him. I look at this one and I say, oh, look how she's dressed. Oh, Lord. My God. It must be designed by Salvation Army. Or this one. Oh, look at her. Putting on airs. I know about her. Or the men. Can't wait to get out of church and go play golf and drink on the 19th hole. That's all they want to. That's the only hole they want to get into is the 19th hole and get all drunk and everything. I don't know anything about that, but no, I've heard things about that. That's what we do, you see? And it causes, at the micro level and at the macro level. See? We now have, and I'm going to move on from this, but this is important because it deals with the Ten Commandments. President Trump has indicated that he requires an unconditional surrender. Catholic teaching, that's a problem. That's a problem. I don't care if you're mega or not. You're Catholic first. What does that mean, unconditional surrender? Does it mean he gets to pick the leader of those people that we have yelled about? We're bringing democracy to them. Oh, by the way, as long as you vote for who I want. It's kind of strange form of democracy. What happens if people choose Khomeini Jr. or whatever? What happens to them? But they went and voted for him. You want democracy? Okay, you got it. They voted for him. Suppose it. It may be unlikely. That's not the issue. The issue is not the outcome. The issue is, if that happened, do we bump him off? All in the name of democracy? Really? How would that work? You see, we have to be very careful about these things. So, unconditional surrender. Unconditional surrender. Are there instances where see, the first thing we always should ask in these things is, what are the key terms, and what do you mean by the terms you're using? What does unconditional surrender mean? What does that mean? Oh, yeah, you just throw your hands up and give everything up. Oh, please, please. You're talking about nations, and peoples, and alliances. That's a little complicated. But you have to know what the terms mean. And very often when we engage in debate, a very good rule of thumb is, this nice lady here and I are disagreeing about some issue, about something. And we're arguing back and forth, which is a good thing. No name calling, none of that kind of stuff. We're arguing a point, whatever it is. The first thing to have a fruitful discussion, debate. Argument is good. I didn't say personal attacks. Argument is good because we're engaged in this was brilliantly done by the founders of this country. Read the Federalist Papers. Ooh, they had such high levels of debate and discussion. And so it was magnificent. That's what gave us this. So debate is not bad. It's good. It's good. But if we're going to make the important first step, and this nice lady here tells me her position, the first thing I should do is articulate her position to her satisfactory, not to my satisfactory. I want you to be saying this. And she says, no, I'm not saying that at all. That's a win. Okay, well, I'm sorry, where did I go wrong? What? You see what I'm saying? Because what I'm asking you then to do is to defend something you're not promoting. See, that's the problem. And I want to be understood. No, wait, before we go any further. You're misunderstanding what I'm saying. That's great. Otherwise, because I'm put in a position of defending what I'm not promoting, and I'm accusing you of what you're not promoting. Now let's all talk and be nice. It doesn't work, because we never stop to say, what is the person's position, and let me understand it to their satisfaction. St. Thomas Aquinas said something very important. He said, a thing is always received with the intention of the receiver. Think about that, folks. A thing is always received with the intention of the receiver. Have you ever had good intentions to give somebody something and it blew up in your face? Of course. Why? Because you didn't take into account how they would receive it. Let's suppose nice lady here, secretary in the office, 55 years of service and all of that kind of stuff, you know, still stumbling around the office, but she's good and efficient and so on. And so on her 55th year of service, I make a collection. And I want to give her this beautiful bottle of arpège perfume. That's what I want to do. And everybody chips in. In commemoration of your 55th year, we want to present you with this. She opens it up. You mean all these years you hated my perfume? Huh? What? She didn't receive it that way. She thought it was a put down on her perfume. Of course, it's a silly example. But you have things in your life where you thought you were doing good and it blew up in your face. And they'll tell you, mind your own business. Nobody asked for your help. Who are you to tell me this? You say, well, I had the best intentions. Yeah, it's blacktopped to hell. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. We don't care about your intentions. It's how I receive it. And we have to, at times, step back or step outside and say, now, how might the person receive this? And a lot of it has to do with how I say something. A lot of it has to do with my tone and content and so on. If I say to her, you really look good today. Okay. You really look good today. Well, am I being sarcastic? Am I being something else? And so on and so forth. How she receives it may be very different by my tone, by what I said, my facial expression, my other things, all of those things. So when you're with a group, you have to learn to read the room. You have to learn, who's your audience? Who's your audience? When you go and you're talking, and so on. You got to be able to read the room if you're going to do this. So we have to be very careful in all of these things, because this often turns into violence, because we never curtail this by trying to engage in a conversation which opens the way to a greater understanding. Look, Catholics have always suffered from nativist prejudice, native-born Americans, always suspicious of Catholics. They were always nothing but puppets of Rome, and so on and so forth. World War I and World War II did more to correct that than anything else, probably. Why? Because they got to know Catholics. They got to know some of the great chaplains and priests of World War I and World War II. Blacks in the military were segregated. Black barracks, black officers, black this, black that. And Harry Truman ended that. And that did much to assimilate and break down the stereotypes and those kind of things. See, when we live in ghettos, we tend to isolate ourselves. We live with these stereotypes in our head. And that's the prism through which we look. But when we come in contact with these people, the others, it's hard to maintain that stereotype when we see that they bleed like I bleed, they cry like I cry, they miss this, they're brave beyond measure, they're heroic, they're cowardly, like our guys, some have ran away. And so we say, hey, I can't become entrenched in this stereotype anymore. You see, I can't. So this deontological or formalistic ethic is very rule and law bound by behavior. When you look at the Ten Commandments are very much behavior and rule oriented. Behavior and rule oriented. Thank you. Thank you, Marie. So you have behavior and rule oriented. It tends to be deontological. It has to do with your duty. That's the way it would appear to be. Because one of the big complaints about the Ten Commandments is what? Huh? Tells you overall what not to do. See? Oh, they're so negative. Well, folks, you know what? It's very good to start off with the negative. What is the first principle of good medicine according to the Hippocratic Oath? What is that? Do no harm. Notice that, please. Did you hear that? It didn't say your first duty is to cure the patient. Don't make it worse. Do no harm. What is the first rule of a good jurisprudence by a very wise judge? What does he issue? When the case comes, what does he issue first and foremost? If it's very good, he's a very good judge. A TRO is what he issues. What is that? A temporary restraining order. Stop. Stop where you are. Stop doing what you're doing. I have to be able to assess the situation, especially if it's a complex case. The last thing you want is some judicial activist running in there with his own philosophy and sociology, because they really mess it up. No, all of you in here are well old enough to remember the great experiment in school busing. Oh, that worked really well. Oh, that was a disaster. Finally ruled unconstitutional. It was a disaster. Taking not into account patterns of neighborhoods, migration, movement, culture, socioeconomic things, etc., and that the people, it was so demeaning to black people. We're going to bus you from where you are so that you can be with those white people, and like red beans, by osmosis, you're going to become white or smart because we've got to get you out of there. That was the subtext, that was the sub rosa message. Because if we leave you there, in other words, instead of elevating the school, we take them, shove them there. Well, the people there weren't keen on the idea. They didn't want to get up at 4 or 5 in the morning to be bused across the city. And the people whose children were taken in this experiment, they were not thrilled about it. Let's work on us. That's an example. When you have judicial activism, oh, bring your case. Okay, this is what we're going to do. You don't even know all the factors. Everybody stop where you are. Let me assess it. So the idea of restraint is very important in medicine, very important in the law. You go to the doctor, and you get in there in the room, and especially if it's a doctor you've never seen before. And he says, "Okay, Mabel, what's wrong with you?" And you give him your symptoms or whatever. Well, I got a fever, I got a pain here and there, and so on and so forth like that. Okay, here, take this prescription. You really want that? I don't think I'm taking that. How does he know what it is? What do they do now? I know it's dreaded. We have to run some tests. Why? You want to be misdiagnosed? Oh, yeah, then you can get your lawyer and sue him for being a bad doctor. And then, okay, so he gives you the prescription right away. Rather, he doesn't give you a prescription, and you got to see. And then he's no good, rotten, and horrible because he's too slow. Now, square that circle for the doctor. Several years ago, it got so bad that in California, which has one of the highest rates for medical malpractice, in which it's hard to go for an hour on television without seeing at least 3 or 4 lawyers pushing malpractice suits on doctors. And doctors started putting up in their office, "Are you sick today? Find a good lawyer." See, that's the level of cynicism and bitterness that this kind of foolishness starts. You see? No, the first thing, prudence demands that you stop. 2 kids are fighting on the playground. Marie, back there, of course, picking on Betty, and for good reason. See, because poor Marie, you know, meek and mild, and Betty, who wants to run the world, She has a Donald Trump syndrome, And so they start fighting. And I come out on the playground, and there they are. And, well, if I'm any kind of teacher, I'm going to separate, and I'm going to say, "What's going on here?" I stop and say, "What's happening?" But let's suppose, for some reason, I have a fondness for Maria over Betty. "Marie, tell me how Betty started this fight." Talk about a leading question, That probably wouldn't work in the courtroom. So the idea of restraint is not a bad thing. How many times in the course of your life have you made significant pauses in your life when you faced a momentous decision? Do you marry? Don't you get married? Do you change jobs? Do you move? All those kind of things. Do you get a new vocation? Instead of this office, you want to try this, some adventure out west or whatever. You don't want to do that. So this idea, oh, it's negative, it's this and that. A lot of negativity can help you with a lot of destruction that you want to avoid when you just rash judgment and make these rash decisions like that. So the 10 Commandments are restrictive. They are duty-oriented. They're negative in the sense of they contain a lot of do not. Yes, we haven't gotten what to do. It's what to do not. Do not go any further. Do not proceed. Do not stop. Stop your behavior. I got to assess it. But the scriptures are saying these commandments is stop and let's see. Let's analyze first and foremost your behavior. Let's look at that behavior. See? So what is the duty that's being asked? What is asked to be avoided? And what behavior is required? Before we get into all these elevated things up here, which we're going to get into, But we have to be able to start at the foundational level of let's stop and analyze. Let's begin with the fundamentals. Let's begin with the planks, the building block. And the first and most important one, without which all the other 9 mean absolutely nothing. And I'll guarantee you, if you don't get the first one right, you will screw up the other 9. You will have a total disaster if you do not get the first one right. And what is the first one? Look in the Bible. Look in the book of Exodus, please, if you would, if you don't mind. Exodus 20. What time is it? It's after, okay, well, let me just introduce you to this, and then you can go home and do whatever you want to do. Go home now if you want. Look at chapter 20 of Exodus. Chapter 20 of Exodus. How does it begin, Marie? Okay, now, you see a lot of knots there. A lot of knots there. Number one, notice who initiates the encounter? God. God always initiates. Our response is always yes or no. We do not initiate the contact with God. We don't have that capacity. Finite does not go to infinite. Infinite comes down to finite. God initiates the encounter, which automatically tells you there's something out of the way and out of the ordinary here. Because the Mesopotamian gods, the Egyptian gods, the Assyrian gods, and the whole bunch of them, they never want that kind of relationship with those who worship them. And we're going to talk about that. And how does that commandment begin, Marie? Wait, slow down. Say it. Stop right there. I am. Don't let that go past you. This is a personal God engaging in a personal relationship with you. That's unheard of. No other religion. No, we take it all for granted today, millennia later. It's like, there is no other God like me because I am revealing myself to you. I'm beginning the relationship and I'm initiating it. Huh? Are you crazy? Gods don't do that. People can't handle it. I am. See, I am. God initiates this, which tells you this is a very special, something brand new and never before imagined, encountered in history is now taking place here. And the first commandment is what? It's a prohibition against what? Yeah, against what? What's that? Yeah, so what is it called? Yes, what is it called? False gods. What? No, not adultery. Oh, you said idolatry. I'm sorry. I thought you were going to confession for some of these people. I was going to... Oh. Sorry. It's kind of close there, idolatry, adultery. Anyway. But they are kind of related.
I think you're right.
Because idolatry is a kind of adultery, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
See?
It's not good.
That's right. It's not good. Well, it depends on, well, never mind. No, you're right. It's very bad. Don't do that. Don't. Okay, so anyway, last little point. What is idolatry? You can read all the books, read your catechism, do all that stuff. I'll give it to you very simple. It's taking a creature and treating it as if it's the creator. It's taking a creature and treating it as if it's a creator. Now, that creature can be an idea you have. It can be a thought process. It can be your automobile. It can be your job. It can be money. It can be all of those things. And what you're saying to those things is, you are almighty, you are my foundation of my life, the end and the beginning. You are the reason for my living, and my whole trust and faith is in you. That's idolatry. In other words, what gets your feet on the floor in the morning with your biorhythms up? Simple thing. You say, coffee. Might be. Might be. I'd like to put some things in some people's coffee, especially since I don't drink coffee. But anyway, try this experiment. And I'm going to stop now, don't worry. So you don't want to run over to the office. It was over an hour. You know, well, that's right. So when your neurons tire out, feel free to walk out. I won't be insulted. Anyway, what I'd like you to do is to get a little, may I borrow this for a moment? This thing, just for a moment. I'll give it back to you. Did you see her clutching it like she's afraid? Did you see it? This? Back to you. My God. You're possessive, huh? Get something like this. And starting tomorrow, which is, I think, the 10th of March, at the end of the day, take about 5 or 10 minutes. That's all. Maybe not that long. And write down, very briefly, just jot it down. This is not War and Peace. Just write down, what is it that consumed your day? Where did you spend your time? That's one of the most precious commodities you have. Because on earth, it's not infinite. It's finite. Huh? Like the days of our lives, sand through the hourglass. Huh? The days of our lives. Thank you, McDonald Carey. All right. And write it down. Just write it down. I spent it gossiping on the phone. I spent it with a sick friend. Just, that's all. Don't analyze it. Just write down several of the things that consumed you. That's all. Next day, do the same thing at the end of the day. And when you get 7 days of that, analyze where you spent your time. Where did you spend it? Who got the sand through the hourglass that you have? Or you can tell me your God is, oh, Jesus, and all of that. How much time did you spend with Jesus? How much time did you spend in prayer? How much time did you spend with the computer? How much time did you, whatever. That can become your idol. Because that is where you're spending your life. See? So don't tell me, these wonderful, high, lofty things. Tell me where you're actually spending it. And see if there's a pattern in those 7 days. See what that pattern, if there's a balance or imbalance there. Again, this doesn't take long. Again, I don't want you to psychoanalyze and all these other kind of foolish things. Just do a simple little inventory of your time. And you may be very surprised where you're spending it. You may not even be aware of where you're spending it and why. I don't know. Whose is this? Is this yours? Oh, I'm sorry. Blabbermouth. You're talking every other time. We'll say, yes, it's yours. No, I wanted to steal it, and I thought you know, the grandmother to Bonnie Parker would have at least gone along with me, but no. I have to get George Washington's Martha there. I can't tell a lie. Oh, God. All right, let's end this and put it out of its misery. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Almighty and gracious God, we offer you glory, praise, and thanksgiving for the gift of this time together, especially this holy season of Lent. As we enter study of your 10 commandments, really the 10 paths to greater knowledge and love of you, help us to enter into them with open minds and hearts.